You want a simple setup to beat the London system? We have a Chess Goals Benko Gambit course, and I'm going to show you a 2-line preview from that course of an easy way to set up against the London system. And all you have to know is 2 different lines. So watch this video, learn the lines, beat your London playing opponents, and then check out the course, link in the description. Hope you enjoy it.
So once they play bishop f4, they kind of like show the hand that they are playing a London, and now we kind of turn to a setup. Like, we're not trying to play a Benko against it. We're not trying to do anything like that. We just turn to a setup that works well against the London. So after they play bishop f4, now we just play g6. So we could play c5 right away, but e3 is actually kind of an annoying response to that. It's because white, it kind of like solidifies his dark squares, and because he's gotten his dark square bishop out before he's played e3 is kind of what makes this e3 move so annoying. So that's why we play g6 first, then e3, and now bishop g7. So as we can see, our system slash setup is going to be to have this kingside fianchetto here, and then to castle as fast as possible. So our first 4 moves, we're already castled. This is great. Very simple. But from here is kind of what makes the setup the setup. So I don't even know if this opening has a name, but it's just like a system. You can play it against really whatever move order. So if white played h3 instead of one of these, like, it doesn't really matter. It pretty much, we stick to our own setup. Doesn't really matter what white does too much until we get to a certain point.
Do you remember how you learned this system?
I don't. I just I was a King's Indian player, so I was looking for something against the London, and this kind of just came up when I was researching.
Oh,
And
cool.
yeah, it's pretty nice.
So we're going to look at bishop to d3. And now we play pawn to c5. It's not to get a Benko style setup though, it's more to just grab space. And keep in mind, if white captures here, we can play queen a5 check. And that wins the pawn back on the next move, and that gives us a nice imbalance with the pawn structure. We traded a d pawn for a c pawn. Most London players though, they're going to play c3. This is what they want. Every single game, they want that exact same setup. And the nice thing about this is it makes it very easy for us to prepare a system against it. So like Justin said, white can do different move orders. You're going to do the same setup almost no matter what, and you're just going to get comfortable with the plans. So we're going to start with b6, then bd2, bishop to b7. And now you can see we have this double fianchetto system that we've learned to like in some of these other lines in the course. And after castle, now we play pawn to d5. This prevents e4. We have 2 pawns on the 5th rank. White only has 1 pawn on the 4th rank. And the plan coming up is we're actually going to try to bring another pawn up here. Is that right?
Yep, that's exactly right. So we already have like a good space advantage. Our pieces are on very nice square. The double fianchetto is pretty much exactly where our pieces want to be. And now our plan is to play for e5. So how do we do that? We start with knight c6, and then we play knight to d7. But what knight d7 does is it opens up 2 more attackers on that square, so that bishop on g7 can come into the party, and then both of these knights are attacking that square. So we're going to have a lot of pieces attacking that square, and if we need more, we can play rook to e8. So that's kind of our plan. And again, it doesn't matter too much what white does. We're pretty much going to do this idea no matter what. So after d5, white plays rook to e1. We play knight c6, kind of finishing our development, and now we're ready to go for this knight d7 and e5 plan. So there's kind of 2 ways that white can go about this position. One is just to kind of stay calm, play something like h3, queen c2, queen e2, just not really do anything pressing, and they can play knight to e5. This is kind of a common idea in the London, is for them to try to plant this knight on e5 and cause some problems for us. But here, because after knight d7, we add 2 more attackers on the square, we essentially force him to take or do something, because if he does something like say knight df3, we would just take until he has to take back with the pawn, and then we play like e6 and queen c7, cement that pawn and just target it. It's very simple, very easy chess. So most of the time white takes on c6 or takes on d7, just trades, we just take back, and then they put their other knight on f3. And now how do we go for this e5 push?
I guess we have to play rook e8 because queen c7 is not available. Your bishop is here. So rook e8. And when you first showed me this system, Justin, I was surprised how well it worked. Because in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, there's no way white just lets us play e5. Just a few moves back, white had full control of the e5 square. But this idea of just rerouting this knight back and putting the rook on e8 and just forcing that move, and if white ever tries to plug this hole, we're going to take and then attack their pawn. It's brilliant. I really like it. So queen e2. And here, white might be thinking, can we play e4? But if they play e4, the problem is for white, we can trade that pawn and we can trade this pawn, and they're going to be stuck with an isolated queen pawn again. So here we go, e5. Just force our move. D takes e, knight takes e5. Now, if you run Stockfish on this position, it's going to say 0.0. But I think black has nice practical chances. We have the big space advantage. We have both pawns up here on d5 and c5. And I think all of our pieces are on nice squares. I like the bishops on the long diagonals. I enjoy having this knight in the center. Both rook and queen are in the center. Really, all we need to do is move this queen somewhere and then bring our other rook into the game. I think we have a perfect setup. And from white's point of view, if you flip this board, I think it's a little bit harder to play. They're on the passive side of that 0.0 eval, and they're trying to figure out, like, how do I make a pawn break? And oftentimes you'll find that players make big mistakes when they're in these passive positions where they just need to sort of sit patiently. They're always going to lash out and do some sort of pawn move that really backfires in the end.
Yeah, I think it's important to show that if they ever kind of go for a pawn break, that usually is going to improve our position. So if they go for something like e4, we might be able to just take, but also just pushing d4 just helps us get more space. So anytime, like Matt's right, they just kind of have to sit tight, and it's very hard for a lot of people to play. It's just a very pleasant position for us, and then it's very easy for white to make a mistake. So let's go back, and instead of knight to e5, in this position, we're going to look at h3. So after h3, now we don't need as much preparation to play e5. We can just go ahead, play knight d7, and we're going to play e5 next turn, like no matter what. Like he can't stop it. So again, our ideas are just very simple here. Bishop h2, we go for e5. So this kind of double fianchetto setup and playing for e5 is our plan against the limit. That's our setup. That's what we're going to go for. So after d takes e5, knight takes back on e5. Yeah, what do you think about this position?
I like it. It just feels so simple. And I've been a Catalan player for quite a while from the white side. To me, this feels like a really nice, comfortable Catalan edge, but we're playing with the black pieces. So I'm enjoying these lines a lot. And I love that we just went over 2 lines and I already feel ready to face the London no matter what white throws at us. Like their system is so consistent. They're doing the same plans every single time. And then we do the same thing. And we're like, here we go, 2 lines. And we're feeling comfortable. And now just go practice, right? Go play this a bunch of times in blitz, rapid, classical, everything. And just work on the different positions arising out of this structure. And you're going to be very comfortable facing it.
Yeah, no, it's just a very nice, easy position to play. Um, yeah, you just have a comfortable space advantage. All your pieces get to nice squares, and the plan's very simple. Like a lot of times, it's kind of hard to come up with a good plan in some situations, but our plan is going to be the same in every position. We're going to try to play e5. So it's just very easy to play because we know what we're going to go for. We don't know, like we know what our plan is, so it doesn't really matter what our opponent does, and we can get this nice, comfortable position right out of the opening.